Imagine being the singer of a famous band, landing in a foreign country for your next gig, and immediately being arrested for a crime you allegedly committed 2 years ago, but have no recollection of. This may sound like the premise to a mystery novel, but it is not fiction. This frightening scenario is the real-life story of Randy Blythe, lead vocalist of metal band Lamb of God. He recounts this harrowing tale of his shocking arrest and imprisonment and the fight to clear his name in his 2016 memoir, Dark Days. Hey, it's Matt. Thanks for listening to this episode of Loud Lit. I'm a huge metal fan, so of course, I'm very psyched about Lamb of God's new album, Into Oblivion, coming out March 13th. I absolutely love 2022's Omens. It's one of my favorite Lamb of God albums, and the singles from this one are killer. So while we're waiting for Into Oblivion, I thought I'd review Randy Blythe's book, Dark Days. And if you're not into metal, don't worry, this book is not just for fans of loud, gnarly sounds. This is a fascinating story that offers valuable lessons for readers of all musical tastes. Before we get into the review, make sure you check out the Loud Lit Bookshop page. Whether you're buying Dark Days or any book, when you start at that link, you'll support not only this show, but also independent booksellers. You can also check out the Loud Lit Substack for more book and album reviews. Links to both are in the show notes. Now, let's talk Dark Days. Early on, Blythe describes the day he was arrested for allegedly killing a fan during a concert in Prague. He had no clue he was wanted for such a horrendous crime, or even that a death had occurred during their show. On top of the confusion and horrific guilt he was feeling, wondering if he had actually caused the death of one of his own fans, Blythe had to deal with awful prison conditions and a legal system that was very different from that of his home country. At times, he felt unfairly singled out, like when his bandmates posted a hefty bail, only to have the Czech government ignore it and then double the bail amount. And his time within the prison walls itself was harsh. He wore ratty, ill-fitting garments that barely passed his clothing. The food was soul-suckingly bland. And some of the conditions were so disgustingly unsanitary that Blythe at times feared for his health. Of course, this is all in addition to the usual and necessary prison life paranoia that comes from taking extreme caution with which inmates you allow yourself to trust and associate with. But this book is about more than just his time in the Czech prison. Blythe uses his words to eloquently reflect on his life, the mistakes he's made, and the mental strength he would need to get him through this situation. Blythe says that when he meets new people, quote, they usually say something along the lines of, "Thank God you're all done with that. That must have been hell, man. I'm grateful for their kindness, but I often want to tell them that it was nothing. I have been to hell before getting arrested. Going to prison, the trial, all of it was like a vacation compared to a couple other things I've lived through." Dark Days is a deeply personal memoir. Blythe shares tales of the pain he caused himself and others while struggling with alcohol addiction, something he had thankfully overcome by the time of his arrest. He doesn't hold back in sharing about that or other painful parts of his life. These hardships gave him perspective in dealing with this new challenge. Not that his perspective alone could fully save his mind from the daily torture of missing his wife, knowing his band and crew were losing money in their singer's absence, and wondering how long his time behind bars would last. Despite the book's title and subject matter, though, Blythe is able to find moments of light in the dark. For example, there's a young guard who happens to be a metalhead and sympathetic to Blythe's predicament, pleading with him, "You must go home. We are all metal brothers. You must keep fighting." There's also his cellmate Dorj from Mongolia, who, despite seeming like an imbecile, can speak 4 languages and schools Blythe many times during their games of chess on their makeshift cardboard set. Dorj's constant whistling, usually to the tune of Christmas carols, annoys Randy to no end. But their odd couple friendship ultimately makes the long days more bearable and creates some entertaining stories for us readers. Blythe even manages to interject plenty of humor as he details some of the more absurd aspects of living behind bars. In fact, there are sections where I literally laughed out loud. I'm not just talking about chuckling inside my head like I normally do when a book has some funny lines. I mean, I audibly laughed. I love the nicknames he came up with for some of the people he dealt with in prison. 2 mustachioed guards were known as Tom Selleck #1 and Tom Selleck #2. And then there was the obnoxious tweaker who he, for some reason, nicknamed Chimpo Weaselman. And man, does Chimpo get into some hijinks befitting of his moniker. Even though most of us can't relate to being locked in a Czech prison or any prison for that matter, Dark Days offers a tremendous amount of wisdom that each of us can apply to our own lives. Blythe delivers reflections on subjects like time, freedom, and gratitude, even including a gratitude list that he wrote while locked up. He has an incredible level of perspective, recognizing that this ordeal is not the worst thing he's ever dealt with, nor is it worse than the hardships so many other people deal with every day. He also shares his steadfast belief that no aspect of this case is more important than uncovering the truth and accepting responsibility for the outcome, even if it means serving years in prison. He writes, "If this tragedy was truly my fault, I knew that no matter how frightening, I could not run from a just and deserved punishment, not if I wanted to still call myself a real man." Ultimately, Dark Days is a book on mindset. Every one of us can take from his account valuable lessons on dealing with difficult situations. His determination to maintain a positive mental attitude and his refusal to avoid accountability are admirable. This book gives readers opportunity for soul searching, as we each ask ourselves how we would respond if faced with our own similarly dark days. Thanks for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe so you can keep getting music book recommendations. And if you want your own copy of Dark Days, click the bookshop link in the show notes. When you do, you're going to be supporting Loudlit as well as independent booksellers. Till next time, keep reading, keep rocking.